on in, everyone. Come on in because we are here doing a Ready to Love recap of the interview that Little Black Book Kojo did on Jonathan. It is an interview that I've been waiting for, and let me tell you, no surprises for me. Based on what I've been saying about Jonathan all season long, in my eyes, in my mind, I'm right. I just feel right, y'all. I just feel right. I've been saying all season long that Jonathan is a people pleaser. And I don't know. I just listened to him in this episode, this interview, and I didn't come to any kind of different conclusion. And in fact, I answered a couple of my questions, and pretty much my questions was, how did it start? How did we get here? I do want to give Jonathan some credit because I've now watched, 4 or 5 exit interviews for people who've been, kicked off the show so far. And one of the things I've been, disappointed in, to say the least, from a lot of these people is that nobody took accountability. No one could admit any of their wrongdoing. No one could have seen things that they could have done differently, even though they were rejected by a lot of people. I just found that I was dismayed by all of that. So I do want to say this to Jonathan. I want to say that I was happy to hear Jonathan apologize once again for what he did to Alexis. I was happy to hear that Jonathan took accountability for what he did to Alexis. He actually explained to us that Alexis told him that she was very uncomfortable and that she did not want to be seen in that light on national TV and that she was upset about it. I like that he admitted wrongdoing. I like that he didn't do what a lot of people do, and that is blame editing. Didn't hear that once. Oh, it was the editors. I also like that Jonathan didn't talk bad about any of his castmates. Okay. I liked all that about Jonathan. You guys remember that when Jonathan first came on the show, he was one of my favorites. And even though Mika didn't like Jonathan because he felt Jonathan was closed off, Mika was correct about that, and she's still correct about that. I saw something deep down inside that I think I liked about Jonathan. It's the same thing I said about Alonzo, but we're not going to go there with Alonzo. But I still see that with Jonathan. I think Jonathan is a good guy. But what I will say with Jonathan, where he didn't make the grade, was he is still missing a few areas of self-awareness. Now, he did say at the end of the interview that he wants to address those things, because what he came away with in the end was that he didn't think that he was necessarily guarded. And we all know that he is. But I'm going to get into why I think he doesn't recognize it and what he needs to do. But at least he came away saying he's going to look into it further. I'm happy with it. That's better than these people that be getting on this show talking about, I don't believe it, I'm not that, and I'm not going to do no looking into it. At least Jonathan came away and said, you know what? I don't really see how I'm guarded, but a lot of people have told me that. You're telling me that. So I don't want to be that way. So I'm going to look into it. Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you for at least considering it. Even if in the end you don't come to the conclusion we've all come to, it's comforting to know that you're willing to look into it. I hope you ain't just paying us lip service. He also said that he was going to look into this thing about shutting down. Because we're like, oh, Jonathan can shut down. He says, but he admitted he knew that about himself. So that's another thing that, like, he admitted he already knew what some of his negatives were. See, when you get a person and you ask them, what are your negatives? And they don't have any, that means they've never done any self-reflection. That means they've never listened to anyone. Because anytime you are in any kind of relationship and you break up, that person that you were in the relationship with tells you some of your negatives. And then if you have at least 2 or 3 of those relationships and 2 or 3 of those people keep telling you the same thing and you still keep denying it, you still keep thinking it's them and not you, that's denial. So like I said, I am happy about the apology, the accountability, the not blaming other people, not blaming edits, not blaming producers, not doing any of that. And then I'm happy in the end that although he didn't have the full self-awareness, of course, one would want, he's willing to look into it. He's not only, he's 36 years old. So, he does need to look into this with some quickness. He's already been through one marriage, one divorce. So he might want to look into it real fast before he gets into another marriage, because if he doesn't, it's going to be a problem there too. Because he absolutely is guarded and he absolutely shuts down. There was one point during the interview where Jonathan was triggered. I already know where his people pleasing, his shutting down comes from. And it comes from, of course, his upbringing, his family, which is most of where all our stuff comes from. Let's be real. Most of our stuff comes from our childhood. And it's not to blame our parents. It's just how we reacted to the environments we were raised in. And then we just carry that stuff on with us. But most of the time, it doesn't serve us in adulthood. It might have served us as a child. It might have protected us as a child. But it actually starts to handicap us as an adult. And there was one point during the interview when Jonathan completely shut down and he went right back into child mode. And I think it happened after well into an hour on the interview. I think the interview was about 2 hours. I listened to it on my commute home from work. I listened to it a little bit at home. But I think he shut down when Kojo started giving him a little bit of insight into what Kojo thought. Like right now, I know if I'm talking to Jonathan that I can't go too hard on telling him the things that I see about him because he'll shut down. He'll shut down because what he will sense is that by me telling him what I see in him, if it's not positive, he takes that as a form of rejection and me not approving. And then he shuts down because he doesn't want to be around or listen to a person who doesn't approve of who he is. He's a people pleaser. He always wants you to be happy with him. So whenever you express anything, it may not even be displeasure. It just may be, hey, I think you should do it this way, or this is what I think. He internalizes it so deeply. To him, it sounds like an unapproval, and that hurts him deeply. He's a sensitive guy. And so when Kojo was actually trying to help him, and Kojo was really nice about it, just saying, hey, this is what I see, Jonathan shut all the way down in that interview. He regressed all the way back to the 5-year-old kid. In fact, he picked up a 5-year-old toy, which looked like it belonged to his son, a toy truck, and started playing with it. He so wanted to check out the conversation with Kojo at that time. He didn't want to hear it. He went right back to probably what he did when he was a little boy with his mama and started playing with that toy and not paying attention at all because he didn't want to hear it. He shut down. It's the same thing he did with Mika. When Mika was digging too deep, trying to ask him things he didn't really want to share yet, he didn't feel comfortable sharing yet. And once Mika was going too deep, and then Mika started trying to tell him about himself, he shut down on her. We saw it over and over again. We saw it on the Ready to Love show, and we had a front row seat to it here in this Kojo interview. So any woman trying to get with Jonathan, let me tell you this right now, you got to feed it to him in doses. Doses. You got to be 90% praise, 10% constructive criticism. You might have to spread it out over a few conversations. Because if you hit him with it too much all at once, he's going to shut down on you and you're not going to make any progress with him. He's a sensitive guy. But what I want for Jonathan is I want Jonathan to recognize that he's a sensitive guy. I want Jonathan to recognize that he shuts down. And I want Jonathan to recognize that he's a people pleaser. And the reason why that is important for him to recognize all that about himself is because when he's in situations and people are telling it to him, he needs not to blow it off. He needs to say, oh, I don't see it right now, but I'm going to trust it because I know that's one of the things that's wrong with me. It's nothing more. It's no different than my nut allergy. It's no different than me being somewhat lactose intolerant. I can tolerate some lactose, but not a lot. You got to pay attention to the signs. And the only reason you pay attention to the signs is because you first have to admit that you're lactose intolerant. See, when my stomach starts gurgling, or I feel a certain way, or when I eat some nuts and my throat starts, I got to know and say, hey, you know what? I got a nut allergy. So I need to slow down on these nuts, because if I keep going, I'm going to have a full on allergy attack. If I keep going eating this ice cream, I'm going to have hell to pay later on in about 2 hours. And that's what Jonathan needs to learn about himself. See, admitting something about yourself isn't necessarily there to put you down, to make you feel bad about yourself. It's actually to get you out of situations that if you keep continuing on the path and acting like you don't have this allergy or this lactose intolerant, later on it's going to be worse on the back end. And that's what happened to Jonathan. Him not admitting that he shuts down, him not admitting that he's a people pleaser, his situations blow up in front of him. They really do. He tried not to say he's a people pleaser. They tried to get to this little scenario, what happened with Alexis. And he tried to clear it up and say, no, I'm not a people pleaser. Let me tell you what was going on. And the ironic thing about it is when he went on to further explain it, I said, all you did was explain a people pleasing moment. He said, no, I wasn't trying to do anything for Alexis when I grabbed her. But yet when he told the story at length and he talked about the pajama party was boring. The pajama party, there was no excitement. The pajama party, there were no good questions being asked. No one was giving good answers. Nothing was going on. People were bored. You know who else was bored? Alexis was probably bored. And so what Jonathan decided to do was to spice it up. He used those words. He said he decided to spice it up. He said he decided to do something of shock value, something to grab the attention, not of just everybody in the room, but of Alexis too. Because what he knew, what he admitted to, was Alexis had a lot of suitors on that show. And he knew that he needed to shoot his shot. Because what he admitted to was he started to see his two connections, which were Maya and Alexis. He said he started to see them drifting off to other people. He saw Alexis forming connections with Will stronger than with him. He saw Maya forming connections stronger with someone else. And so what he decided to do in that moment was a shock value to get the attention of Alexis, and it was a complete fail. It was a complete fail. And it's actually, it may not be the exact version of what I said, but it's close enough. It's 90%. Is what I told you why he did it to Alexis. It was a Hail Mary. He saw he was losing the game. It was fourth quarter. It was 30 seconds left in the game. And he says, if I don't do something, I'm going to lose this game. And he threw a long bomb, a Hail Mary, to the end zone. And his shit was intercepted. Intercepted. He was trying to please Alexis. And in pleasing Alexis, in his desire to please Alexis, guess what happened? It went bust. It went completely bust. So at least he apologized. He saw that it was wrong. It isn't anything that he wanted to do. But I really want him to spend more time on understanding, like you guys know, I'm an engineer, the root cause of it. And I'm going to give him a little bit of help. I'm going to give him a little bit of help because I have an idea where it comes from. And I think it comes from that household with that mama and that daddy. Jonathan started off telling us that he is half Nigerian. His daddy's from Nigeria. His mama is from Louisiana. And he is the oldest of the boys, 4 kids in the family. He's the oldest son, but he has an oldest sister, which is quite a bit different. He's not the oldest son. He's not the oldest. He's the oldest son, which is a unique position. And he has an older sister. He tells us that his father was emotionally unavailable. His father was, as he says, is a typical Nigerian man. These are his words, not mine. And he's saying that his father was a good provider, but his father lacked emotional validation for him. His father was a lovey-dovey. His father didn't show his emotions a lot, and he missed out on that bond with his father. His father concentrated on providing for the family, and it sounds like he did a pretty good job for that. It sounds like he did a really good job for that. And where I think some of this emotional pleasing comes from is because I believe that's the role Jonathan had to play in his family, primarily with his mother. You see, when you have a husband who's emotionally unavailable, there are a lot of people who suffer in the family. A lot of people. It's just not the kids. The kids suffer emotionally, like he's saying he did, but so does the wife. So does the wife. If anyone is a wife out there and you're married to an emotionally distant man, you're suffering. You are suffering. And what happens when a woman doesn't have an emotional connection with her husband, or her husband isn't giving her that emotional connection, she only can go out and get it two ways from a man. She either can have an affair on that husband and she can go get it from another man in the street, or she can get it from her son. And what I believe happened to Jonathan is Jonathan was required to give the emotional support, validation, and people-pleasing to his mother that his father didn't take care of. He became there to fill the void of what the father didn't do. See, some kids, young boys, have to grow up, I have to learn to provide for the family, learn how to make money, because they're trying to fill that role for the mother because there's no father there to provide financially. Jonathan didn't have that problem. He had a provider in the home. He didn't have to worry about providing for the family. And in fact, him not having to worry about providing for the family might be the reason why he's made certain career choices, because he didn't have any pressure like that as a young boy. He didn't have the pressure of seeing, hey, I got to step up and provide money for the family. That happens to a lot of single mothers, right? A lot of boys feel the need to provide both financially for their mother when she's a single mother and she's struggling. And they find the need to provide for their mother emotionally because they don't see their mother with any emotional support from a man. It's a lot of pressure. What eventually happens when those boys, this is just my theory, I ain't no psychologist, no psychiatrist. I believe that when boys have that much responsibility to a mother, a tremendous emotional support, also tremendous financial support they have to give the mother, they react in different ways when they get older. They either lean into that even more when they become married or get into relationships with women. They either lean into it and they want to do it anymore, or they rebel against it when they get older. I think people react differently, very differently. I think financially, Jonathan never felt the need to make a lot of money because I think he came from a very stable household. I think that's why we find him now working in a family business, right? Willing to fold into that and kind of just take over something that might be somewhat handed to him. He said he went to college. He said he was the first to go, but he went to school to major in film. And I'm not going to talk about any film majors, but it's a risky major. It's a major where you can make it or you can not. And you have to have a certain sometimes level of privilege to major in things like that. Because if you don't make it, you got to ask yourself, what will I do? How will I survive? And when you come from a stable family, you can just say, oh, my family will provide. I'll be just fine. I could take that risk and it might pay off. But it sounds like the film producing industry didn't pay off for him. So now he's back in the family business. He says it's an actor though, y'all. At the end of the episode or the end of the interview, he said he's going to be in a movie on Amazon Prime with Billy Bob Thornton. I forget the name of it, but he's going to be in a movie with Billy Bob Thornton because he's an actor. It is his love. It is the love that he likes to do. He likes the camera. He said he was a communications major. Go figure, y'all. He was a communications major in college. But yeah, he does struggle with some communication. He absolutely does. But he said he didn't really want to go to college. He said that he wanted to go to trade school. He said he wanted to do something different with his life. He didn't necessarily want to go to college, But then when he went, he majored in communications. He said he wanted to go to trade school, maybe be an electrician or something. I forget all what he said. But it was his mother who didn't want him to do that. And then guess what he did? He pleased his mother. He went to college. And it's not that it was a wrong thing. I mean, it's great. But once again, there was another point in his life where he probably figured out, hey, I'm pleasing my mother. My mother didn't get to go to college. Maybe it was my mother's dream or my father's dream for her children to go to college. The oldest daughter did not go to college. And so Jonathan became the one that pleased the family. Think about it. The idea of wanting the kids to go to college didn't start with Jonathan. It started probably with all their children. And the sister didn't please the parents. She did whatever she wanted to do, which was maybe she has a great career. I have no idea. But it was Jonathan who decided to please the parents, please the mother, and go to college. And he majored in something where maybe it really wasn't what he wanted to do, but he was there pleasing his mother. He also talks about his relationship with his mother now. And one of the things he mentioned was real slight. He said there came a point in his life when he went away to college and he was happy to go. He was happy to go and be out from under the rules and regulations of home, which I believe in the most part was his mother. I think his mother was quite emotionally needy of him. And I think that going away to college gave him a sense of relief, a sense of freedom. But he says because there came a time where he didn't even really want to talk to his mom that much. Not that much, because his mom would call him and ask him to do things for her. And he was tired. He was tired. I think Jonathan really had to play a big role in his household as the oldest male of fulfilling the emotional needs and attending to the emotional needs of his mother. There was some unhappiness in the marriage. He mentioned it. He said it. He talked about times of sleeping in separate rooms, parents arguing, which happens in marriages sometimes. And he said he didn't want that for his marriage. So I'm quite sure that made Jonathan feel a certain kind of way. I'm quite sure he saw his mother unhappy plenty of times in that marriage. And what Jonathan tried to do was soothe his mother. And then as he grew up, he's now become the soother to other women. He's a people pleaser. He's a people pleaser. And what he does, like he mentioned in this interview, is he says he's a good read of people. He didn't call himself an empath, but he says he's a real good reader of energy. He knows how to read where you're coming from, and he can respond to that energy. And I think that he had a lot of practice with it with his mother. I think he had a lot of practice listening to his mother's frustrations, his mother's, maybe even with his own father, right? And now that's where Jonathan is, and that's how he enters relationships. He asks a lot of questions. He listens. He even talks about that he works on listening even more than he does now. Jonathan likes to listen to you, like I said early on, so he can figure out what you like, what you don't like, so he can give you more of what you like and not give you what you don't like. See, people thought that Jonathan was being guarded because he was a liar or a cheater. I never thought that. I never thought that Jonathan was a liar. I recognized that he was guarded, but his guardedness I didn't think came from a place of being a liar. And that goes back to women interpreting men's behavior based on their own experience. I said that with Patrice when Patrice assumed that Will was broke because he said he was going to sleep on the floor with a blanket. I said, where do you get that reference point, Patrice? You must get that reference point because you slept with broke, homeless men with nowhere to live. Because how could you bring that context in? And I'll say that again with Jonathan. When Mika and April all assumed that the reason he was guarded or the reason he believes the mother of his child might still have an interest in him or might take him back, that there was shenanigans going on, there was baby mama drama as they were calling it, or that he was a liar, I didn't jump to that conclusion because I had seen nothing else that made me think he was a liar. And I believe it still. I believe what it is when he is being guarded, he is trying to figure out what to say to you so that you are pleased with him. You see, he's watching his words because he doesn't want you to be displeased with him. He wants you to be accepting of him. He gave this whole speech about when he was young and in middle school and high school, he was bullied a lot. He was the kid that other kids would come around and bully and pull his pants down. He said he was awkward. He was lanky. He said he was dark skinned. He had bad skin, pimples. He had glasses. He looked horrible. This is what he said. He said it wasn't until he was out of high school, that he started to come into his own. The acne went away. He grew into himself. He said he grew up with very, very low self-esteem, very low self-esteem. He said his virginity was stolen, taken by a girl who didn't really even like him, but just probably wanted to steal his virginity and have sex with him, because he said that the minute they had sex, she didn't want to have nothing to do with him after that. Nothing to do with that. So once again, he was with a woman that didn't even really like him. It was the reverse of the stories you sometimes hear with women. It was the exact worst. So he's saying he really didn't come into his own until he went to college. He started feeling himself. You know, he said, ooh, I got women after me now. I guess I could try to develop some swag. But he was a late bloomer. He had a late start on it. He joined a fraternity, the Omega Psi Phi fraternity. He became a Q dog. And he said after that, you couldn't tell him nothing. He was humping the floor. He was he was going to them frat parties. He had all kind of girls by that time. And even though he had one girlfriend, I think he told us from sophomore to senior year, he said he messed it up. He messed it up because he couldn't handle all this other attention he was getting from being this newly initiated Q dog, and he went a bit wild. He almost got kicked out of college because he was on academic probation. He said, I ain't never seen these days. I've never seen this level of popularity, and I'm going to ride this train till the wheels fall off. And it messed up his relationship. He said she the one that got away. She might be the one that got away. He didn't really go into his full love story of the woman that he married and who's also the mother of his children, but he had a lot of good things to say about her. He said they have a good co-parenting relationship. He said he loves his son. He said that the mother is a wonderful mother. They have a good relationship. And he doubled down on what he said, that he still does get the idea that if they could be back together, that mother would take him back. He doubled down on it. I don't think it's secretive. I don't think there's any sort of going back and forth with, that he really wants to be with a woman. I think he's a people pleaser. And I think that people pleasers, of all the people in the world, right? They've got problems, but at least they're putting the effort to please you. And sometimes that's a better problem to have. Now, the part about Jonathan where I can tell he's going to have a problem in relationships is his sensitivity, his overwhelming desire to be a people pleaser. Because what happens is whenever you talk to him and you express anything, he's going to internalize it so deeply, he's going to shut down and he's going to be the hurt one. And so now you're going to be like, well, dang, I can't even express myself and what I may want differently because he's going to be so hurt over it, and then he's going to shut down. That's why he needs to walk into awareness, because he's got to understand that he is a people pleaser. He's got to understand that he doesn't take constructive criticism as well. He internalizes it too much. So now he shuts down, which means with a partner, that's hard. That means you always may have to walk on eggshells with Jonathan too much. Because if you say too much to him, he's going to shut down and he's going to run away. And I think he ran away from his marriage. I do. They weren't even married long, maybe a couple of years. He says they grew apart. He said there came a point in time where the nastiness between he and his ex was a lot. They were saying a lot of verbal things that were hurtful to each other because they were hurt. And what I believe is that Jonathan's very sensitive. And it would be hard to improve a marriage with a person who you can barely talk to, because if you say anything to them, they shut down. which means you don't make progress, which means you can't fix the things in the relationship you want to fix because they're ultra sensitive. And when they don't even recognize that they're ultra sensitive, good Lord, what are we supposed to do with this? He's a people pleaser. He wants you to always be happy with whatever you do, whatever he does. He doesn't want you to express any displeasure. He doesn't want you to be unhappy. He says, well, I'm willing for you to tell me what you want and for me to fix that. But guess what, Jonathan? If you're willing to want me to tell you what I want differently from you and what I want you to fix, that also means that you have to be willing to hear the things that I don't like about you. And that may trigger you, just like Kojo triggered him in this interview. It may trigger you to go back to being that little boy at home when your mother was doing it to you. Okay? When your mother might have been projecting because of what she was lacking from her own husband. And that put a lot of emotional responsibility on you to carry the weight in a household for some emotional regulation. Let me tell you something. And then being wedged with the older sister. See that? And when I said that's a difference. He has another female, another emotional being in the house, which is an older sister. So now he has two women emotionally in the home. There could be a good chance that the older sister could have had some conflict with the mother. That often happens with daughters and mothers at a certain age when the daughter is coming into her womanhood at the 14, 15, 16 years old. There could be clashes between the daughter and the mother. Sometimes, hopefully, the mother and the daughter come back together and older, and that daughter starts to appreciate that mother more. Who knows what went on? I don't know how much that mother was an emotional zap, not only from the daughter or from Jonathan, but I do see that she did it to Jonathan. I see that she used Jonathan as an emotional substitute for her husband. And if Jonathan is wedged in a household as the oldest son between the mother's emotional needs and the oldest sister's emotional needs as females, he became a people pleaser. He became the one to try to control the temperature in the house because the father was checked out. The father was at work. And who knows, maybe the father stayed at work all the time because he didn't want to do that emotional regulation in the house. Sometimes that happens. Sometimes men stay at work not just to make money, but they stay at work because they don't want to come home to a house full of strife and conflict because the emotional outbursts in the house are too much. Jonathan said he's conflict avoided. He don't want no problems. He doesn't want arguing. He doesn't want fussing and fighting. That probably be also because it was present in his house and he had to do too much to calm it down. He had to be the people pleaser. You can't have everybody fussing and fighting in the house, not getting along. You can't have the mother mad at the daddy leaving and going to work, the daughter, the oldest sister at work. He had to become a people pleaser. He had to be the one to say, hey, I can't join this party of complaining and fussing and fighting. I got to be different. I got to learn how to keep the peace, calm everybody down, listen to everybody's needs. What do you want? Let me give you this. Let me give you that. That's how you become a people pleaser. That's how you become a people pleaser. And in the end, what happens is you start to lose what did you want for yourself. Just like when he said, I went to college. I didn't want to go. I majored in something that I really didn't want to do. I did it for everybody else. I became a people pleaser to my parents. And although they might have been right, maybe they might have been right on college was a better choice for him. In the end, now here he is right back taking over the family business. Is this another people pleasing moment? Is this where the father is getting older and the father says, who's going to take over the family business? And nobody wants to do it. So the oldest son, Jonathan, is doing it. But what Jonathan really wants to do is act. What's going on? And I'm not even saying that he needs to change it, but I think he needs to recognize it in the context of his relationship because it plays a role. I think Jonathan is a runner. I absolutely do. I think that as he got older, his response to being a people pleaser was that when he gets tired of pleasing people, he runs from it. He can't figure it out. He figures if I can't make you happy, I'm just going to leave. I think he left his marriage prematurely. That's probably why that wife believes that they could get back together because the wife probably feels like our marriage wasn't that bad. The wife probably feels like, yeah, we had some problems. Yeah, we had some things we need to work to like everybody else does in the first 2 years of marriage. But it wasn't so bad enough that we should have left the marriage. But in Jonathan's eyes, he said, we went to counseling. He said they talked to pastors, they went to counseling. But guess what? It wasn't enough. He didn't want to work through the issues. He said it was too much. The words got too deep. The words cut too deep. And for a person who's sensitive like Jonathan, words cut deeply. Those are deep wounds that may never be healed. Maybe the wife didn't know that. Maybe the wife didn't know that the words she chose in her moments of frustration cut so deep that he would never be able to recover from them. He would never be able to trust her again. See, that's another thing Jonathan talked about. See, initially in this interview, Jonathan was chatty. He was just talking. It was because Kojo was just listening to him. Kojo was validating him. Kojo was very good at that. He was doing all those things. I mean, Jonathan opened up like a flower. It wasn't until Kojo started speaking up and saying, these are the things that I see, and actually giving him some advice, he closed off. See, Jonathan needs a safe space. He needs a big, wide open, safe space. He needs to be sure that you're not going to reject him. He needs to be sure that you're going to approve of everything that you see about him and that he says. And that's the safe space. Once he feels safe, he will open up. But the problem is he's like a little turtle. Soon as you say one thing that you don't like, one thing you want him to prove, one thing you disagree with him on, he sinks back into that tortoise shell. That doesn't work long term in a relationship. Your relationship can't progress when you're not open to honest communication, constructive feedback. Sure, people need to do it with love. They don't need to yell and scream at him, and they're going to have to do it in doses, but he's got to do better at being able to receive it. If he doesn't get better at being able to receive it, he's going to have a lot of failed relationships. Because relationships take work. And taking and work means honest feedback, receiving it and also giving it. Both. He's got to also be able to give it as well and receive it. You see, I don't even know if he knows how to give it too well, because when he was having those issues with Meek and April, he didn't want to have any conflict with Meek and April. So you know what he did? He shut down and he walked away. A lot of people feel like, well, why didn't you speak up to Meek? Or why didn't you do this? A lot of Jonathan speaking up came off camera. If you notice it, a lot of it came off camera. He just shut down in front of these ladies. He didn't want to deal with it. He ran. He might have run away physically. He probably was sitting there, but in his mind, he had run away. It's no different than what he did to Kojo in the interview. He was physically still there. He was listening. He was physically still there when Kojo was talking, but mentally, he had run away. He was busy working with some little toy car. He was not there mentally. He shut down and exited the conversation. And he did that with Kojo. Even after Kojo had laid this beautiful table of a safe space for over an hour, did a good job at laying the foundation. He opened up. He was talking fully sharing. The minute it got to this point, boom, the vault doors came down. That's too soon, too fast, Jonathan. That's way too soon and too fast. He said in his next marriage, because he does want to get remarried, he wants to be slow to speak and quick to listen. He's a good listener. He's a good listener. As long as you're not telling him about himself, he's a good listener. If you're telling him about yourself and what you want and what you need, he listens. He listens. He wants to please you. But eventually he will become overwhelmed. He said it. If you're hard to please, I'm going to run away. So in one way, he's quick to listen. He's quick to please. But some people can take advantage of that. And they'll keep asking and asking and asking. And when they keep asking and asking and they become unsatisfied, Jonathan will run from those women. Jonathan will need a woman that can be accepting of who he is, because that was a big thing. That woman's going to have to be a person that offers a lot of praise, sets a nice foundation, safe space. That's why the two women he said he liked Maya and he liked Alexis. And of the two women we've seen on this show, who are the two women that provide the nicest safe space for a man to open up, who are complimentary and who are warm and inviting to men? And they're Maya and they're Alexis. And that's why Jonathan was drawn. He said that if he hadn't gone home with Alexis, he said he didn't care because Alexis was really the only person there that he really liked. He already saw that Maya had been drifting off in another direction. He didn't want any of those other women. He said Rashina was cool, but Rashina gave homie vibes. I keep telling you all that about Rashina. Rashina gives homie vibes. Everybody likes Rashina. The men like Rashina. She gives homie vibes because of her demeanor and the way she presents in dates. I did that whole video on girls girl versus guys girl. A couple of you dropped down in my comments and said, well, Auntie Deborah, you did the wrong comparison. And said the comparison you should have done was the comparison of Rashina with Justin. Because what their argument was that the reason why Rashina was the way she was with Will and Jonathan was because neither of those men really liked her. And so as a result, it wasn't a good comparison for me to look at Rashina's dating style because she was dating two people that she supposedly already knew that didn't like her. Nope, I don't agree with that because I always tell you practice makes perfect. So once then I would have a problem with her dating style because I would say she shouldn't have changed her dating style just because she thought Will and Jonathan didn't like her. Your dating style should be your dating style, is what Maya does, is what Alexis does. They don't change their demeanor based on if the man doesn't like them or not. They do what they do. So the fact that I was being told that, well, the reason Rashina had that dating style, which I thought was not a good dating style, y'all can watch the video, was because the two men didn't like her. No, her dating style is her dating style. And then I'm going to go further and say that the date she has with Jonathan was a flop. Not Jonathan, Justin. It's no better comparison with Justin. It was a flop. Justin put her in the friend zone too. So even though she might have felt more at ease, even though she liked Justin herself, it doesn't matter. It was a flop because in the end, he put her in the friend zone too. And that's the same place Will put her. It's the same place Jonathan put her, in the friend zone. Her energy that she brings isn't the energy that a man wants from a woman, that he wants to feel vulnerable with, one that he can feel like he can open up with. Not at all. It's not. It's an energy that feels like this woman may overpower me, especially when you're dealing with men who are sensitive. We know who else we know is sensitive. It's Will. All that ego and bravado on the outside, on the inside, there's these levels of insecurity. That's what it is. Many of you are watching Love is Blind with the character Clay. Same thing. These outside protection walls, guards that men have are really inside insecurities. That's what they are. Will running around talking about how he's a millionaire. More than likely, he grew up poor. More than likely, he was ashamed of being poor as a kid growing up. And now for you to come here in his adult life and to call him poor is the ultimate disrespect. He might have been the poorest one in his neighborhood. He might have been the kid in a family where they couldn't eat. And so now to be where he is and have the money he has, he doesn't even have to be a millionaire. He's a millionaire compared to where he came from. And so for someone to call him broke, it was highly offensive. It triggered him. So no, I don't like Rashina's dating style because it gets her put in the homie vibe. And I don't care how much makeup she puts on. I don't care how much accoutrements, jewelry, all the femininity she brings in terms of her dress, her style. Her demeanor does not feel the same as her dress style. And in the end, those men are going to respond to that energy when it comes to romantic versus friendship. You see, you can't put lipstick on a pig. That's the old saying. So yes, Rashina is very feminine in her dress. She's feminine with her nails. She's feminine with her makeup, her hair. Like she says, all things girly, not all things girly, what she said, all things beauty. All things beauty. But when she presents to a man, she's actually not presenting that feminine side. She's dressed feminine, but she's actually presenting a more masculine side. Alexis, on the other hand, you look at her, she looks, as Koshia said, she looks like a 12-year-old boy or something, right? Physically, she doesn't even look all that necessarily feminine, but her demeanor is. And guess what the men started responding to? Her tone, her speech, her talk. They're not even responding anymore. The fact that she doesn't have big boobs and big booties or big hips or BBL. They're not even responding to that. They're responding to her energy, her aura, her essence. So nope, I'm going to say that Rasheena's dating style is not working because she was put in the friend zone. And does that mean that Alexis is working either? No, of course, because she's on the show as well. But I got a whole theory about that with Alexis, but we'll get to that another time because this video ain't about that. This video is about Jonathan. But Jonathan had a few good takeaways. He did, so I'm happy about that. He said that he didn't want to be the person that shuts down. He said he didn't want to be the reserved guy anymore because I think a lot of people have called that out over the years. I think that's what contributed to this whole debacle at the pajama party. He doesn't want to be seen as the reserved guy. He doesn't. He doesn't want to be seen as that. He wants to be the person that brings excitement to a room. But the truth of is he grew up being the person that brings calm to a room. You see, he's trying to change that because in his life, his real life, he had to bring calm to the room. He had to bring calm to that house he grew up in. And now he doesn't want to have that role. He wants to be the person that brings excitement to a room. But he don't have no good practice with it because he don't know how to really do it. And that's why he came to this pajama party trying to bring some excitement and not be the reserved guy. And it was a big, complete flop, a disaster. But you know what? He said that he doesn't want to be that guy. He wants to get remarried. And even another part where I'm going to give Jonathan kudos is there's another question that Kojo normally asks the contestants, and that is there anything that you regret? And most of these folks the last couple of times says, no, I don't regret nothing. Good Lord. At least Jonathan admitted, you know what, I do regret, what he did at the pajama party because he wished he could have gone further. He wished he could have been at the retreat. He wished he could have had more alone time with Alexis. So Alexis could have really gotten to know him even more and he could have gotten her more. He liked Alexis. And what he expressed was regret that what he did at that pajama party got him kicked off. And as a result, he wasn't able to go to the pajama party and try to make an even more stronger connection with Alexis. He did. He regretted it. He wished he had more time with her. He wished he could talk to her now. He even said that too. They don't have no communication, but he said he wished he could even talk to her now. So of all these exit interviews, I'm going to give Jonathan the #1 prize so far. I think of everybody, he did the best. Was it perfect? No. But his competition ain't really all that stiff either. Because the rest of the people were downright in denial. But do I say that Jonathan is ready to love, y'all? I actually believe so. I actually think with these few tweaks, with maybe a little bit of counseling, I think Jonathan is going to make a good mate for someone. I believed it from the very beginning. It was what my gut and my instinct said, and I think so. But I think he needs to work on this so he can be solid for a woman, because otherwise he's in danger of becoming a runner in a relationship, and that's not good. People want security. Women want security. So if he works on this, I think he'll make a good mate for someone. I really, really do. But anyway, that's it, y'all. Let me know what you think down in the comments, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.